Welcome to Canopy, where we brew up some insights on the ever-evolving world of cloud and just generally here to have a good chat. I'm Jamie, Head of Business Development at Canopy, and I'm delighted to be joined here by James Marks, ex-AWS youngest business leader, now, more importantly, our CEO and founder. Thrilled to be also joined by Johan Hanekom, Managing Partner at Ascari Ventures, ex-AWS Principal, author, and also our CIO. That's what your go-to brew is.
First of all, pleasure to be here, Jamie. I think, it can't beat a lovely cup of tea.
I err on the side of coffee, so that's been my de facto. So this is my first cup of tea probably this year, to be quite frank.
You're joking. I know brew means a different thing in your country.
True, that's why we don't like to confuse it, because some bloke might rock up.
Let's dive in. James, what's been going on with Canopy?
We've got some exciting developments happening on our technology side of the business. So we've pulled in global leader in technology in the form of Sarah Mitchell as our CTO. She left as director at Stripe, managing the UK and Ireland technology business, building a really state-of-the-art platform that we are beta launching next week, actually. So
one big thing in cloud that you are currently observing.
Well, I'm seeing a realization from customers that the cloud spend is no longer just a line item under technology. It's actually now becoming very much part and parcel of the operating costs of any business.
Make reference to some of the customers, and actually one recent one out in the US, Silicon Valley, AI startup. They've actually just raised a seed round of upwards of $10 million, of which over 50% of that is going to be spent in the cloud.
Wow.
Because if you think about the time it takes for a business model to be executed, you write up the plan, you get together once a year or maybe every 4 months to review, and it's outdated by then, right? And so we see this rapid external rate of change, which companies and startups are having to adjust to, which is quite terrifying, to be quite frank. If you cannot build an agile company, your right to exist will be eliminated. My prediction, and this is why I'm such a big believer in what Canopy is doing, is that we're going to see thousands of micro clouds, maybe even clouds that specialize in a certain vertical because of the security required, the sovereignty required, just the pure cost associated with it, right? And so when you start looking at your business, then how ready is your data structure and architecture to be able to play in that world? Or have you architected yourself to be all in on a cloud provider? That's now a single point of failure in your business, which is unforgivable. There are industries that exist that all they do is surface data, because you can have all the data, but you don't have insights. It's like the world we live in. There's an abundance of information, but we lack knowledge and insight. And the paralysis that happens with the choice that we have. We've spoken about this. There are lots of cloud providers now. There are variations and iterations of the cloud that we'll see in the future. So it's only going to become more complex to navigate. And especially if you think about the real beauty spot is real-time decision-making, right? So instantaneous. What in the next 20 minutes, where is the cheapest GPU that I can find for my workload, right? No one can answer that question right now, right? That is a massive opportunity. If longer-term storage is super easy because it's predictable and it's factored in. I think it's where we start seeing these big pulses and jumps in compute, which need to be addressed real time versus, well, we're on a 3-year plan, so that'll just have to do for us. Right? That is insane to continue working like that.
So one of the limiting factors has been this, cost of migration, which is, rightfully so, burnt a lot of CTOs. They've had bad experiences, but with advancements in technology, we've been able to see that migrations that should have taken a year and a half being done now in less than 6 weeks. I'm speaking at Tech Show, London Tech Week next week, and I asked the room on whether or not they think they're running an efficient cloud infrastructure. I would say 95% of that room won't be. It's a staggering statistic when you break it down, and the millions, billions, and now obviously trillions being invested into cloud, growing at 22% compound annual growth rate, according to McKinsey. You know, when you reference those numbers and you realize the inefficiency, you're thinking, well, you know, less so on a business level, but on an economic level, what impact does that have to UK businesses and our ability to compete on the global stage? And we're seeing this massive shift. This is actually a strategic economic imperative to get right, because if you can organize yourselves so that you are running efficiently, the innovation that gets unlocked off the back end of that is incredible. And you know, like with all markets, I compare it to the oil and gas in the 1970s, hugely inefficient. Then came brokers, then came traders in order to basically solve for efficiencies in the market, and now they're squabbling over 0.01%.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
and so the opportunity is massive. I don't know, Johan, if you have got.
We're battling with innovation in the UK, right? There's a real desire to be innovative. There's a real desire to be a world leader and to continue being so. But if you look at purely macroeconomic trends, you know, India has just usurped the UK in terms of economic size. Now, India has the benefit of 1.4 billion people. We're 80 million. So, you know, power to weight ratio, we're doing well for ourselves. If we can quadruple or 10x our productivity in the UK, then imagine the impact that could have on a global stage. And I think that's where, to James's point, you know, we're also, this is about working with startups and scale-ups and enterprises to help them drive out inefficiency in their business through looking under the hood and asking some simple questions around cost. I think part of this Canopy journey is it's looking at increasing the potential in a business, taking what is there and making it better. So it's not just about cheaper compute. That's not the value proposition. I mean, that is a means towards the end, but the end is really building incredibly resilient, robust, profitable businesses. And from whether you're a single employee, a solopreneur, or you've got 1,000 people working in your business, if you can introduce that level of scrutiny and diligence in your business, I think that's very exciting. And that means that every single business right now has an opportunity to reinvent itself through technology and innovation. And it's so, the price point is so low right now. It's more a case of having the appetite to say, let's at least give it a go. And I think that fail fast culture is something we were exposed to at Amazon. You know, it's a 30-year-old organization that still embraces that fail fast culture. And I think that it's something we want to really bring with us as part of this value proposition is, what does the next version of your business look like? How can we play a part in it? Cost saving, ideation, and most importantly then execution to drive revenue.
Inefficiency is opportunity. That's well said. That's well said.
I like it.
Right now, the amount of investment going into AI from a commercial lens versus regulating AI and using AI in a safe is 10,000 to 1 ratio.
Firstly, we've had these donuts in front of us for the last hour. I'm super. It's part of our interview process. How passionate are you about the topic to resist a donut and focus on the task?
There's that saying about if you can eat a donut and not lick your lips, you're built different. I think we're fully built different today.
We've got a lot of experience in the team, having worked at AWS, but I think combined we've got over 70 years of experience in the technology industry. And through that, and we say this at Amazon as well, is that there's no substitute for experience. You know that knowledge, and that's why, you know, companies bring in advisors, they bring in people that have been in the industry so they can foresee potential challenges. And it's like what you mentioned, it's like, so things that you don't know that can harm you. And so we were able to work with their team and their CTO to develop, you know, effectively their cloud strategy, of which they've then been going on to secure funding, which has been great because, again, VCs and private equity are looking at your technology strategy. And we were just actually speaking with another company in New York that, you know, they specialize family office in buying up healthcare businesses. And, you know, they're now obviously looking at health tech, and they actually don't really know how to assess these companies. And so we're coming in to help advise them on making those investment decisions. And so we're not just adding value on the bottom line. We consider ourselves a growth partner in the space where you can, through using our services, get yourself in a position where you have got a robust cloud strategy that has considered all options, both economical and also, thinking about, what other potential commercial benefits can be had. And, if we can help companies, accelerate through their journey and ultimately, get through, and it's a tough world out there for any startup and scale up. And we firsthand experienced that, particularly in the current market. It's about differentiating yourself, and it will be the companies, I genuinely believe, that have this in place and have a really clean, well thought out cloud strategy, that those will be the ones that differentiate themselves. Those will be ultimately the winners.
There are three things that I see within Canopy that I really admire. Firstly is the customer centricity. As an investor, I work with lots of startups, and I think that's often overlooked because you fall in love with your solution, your product, your service, versus falling in love with the customer problem. And we're facing a very unique situation where customers are struggling to understand their own problem that they're facing because, to your point earlier, James, and what you've mentioned, Jamie, as well, it's such a rapidly evolving landscape. And so you really are having to go on the journey with the customer to say, look, we're both venturing into the unknown together. There is a North Star we're chasing, which is efficiency and optimization of your data and how it's processed and the cost at which it's processed. But there's also a business strategy here, which we're forming part of, right? And so we've got to earn the customer trust so that they're happy to share their growth plans with us, because in the absence of which, we don't know what their trajectory looks like. The second thing, of course, is helping to educate them on where the pitfalls are, right? What we've seen, and as James has mentioned, we have this privileged position where we're working with the government around strategy, where we're looking at other sovereign nations, what they're doing to determine, how can we complement the UK strategy in this space? Because ultimately it's a foot race, and the race has started, right? And so we have to keep pace in order to stay in the lead. And I think the third thing, which is how, this democratization of the economy, where I foresee, and on Monday I'm speaking at an event, the Global Investor Forum, about how AI is displacing how we do work in terms of the investment thesis, how companies can position themselves, how they retain funding, how they get funding. And so it's looking at how the Canopies of the world work together, right? These highly specialized, best-in-class businesses like Canopy partnering with another best-in-class in order to drive a successful customer outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that is super.
And I think nowadays the value of collaboration, being able to identify where you've, as a company, got gaps, and where you need to then, at the right point in time, bring in a Canopy, or bring in a Sumo Logic, or bring in a Source Fuse that can, have done this, is their bread and butter. And now it's easier than ever with API integrations and other things in which you can basically get to a solution a lot quicker. And ultimately, we're a broker.
Yeah.
We're there to, in the best interests of the customer. We sit agnostically of all cloud providers. We currently work with 22. There's now 30 plus. But our business model is purely based on what is the customer problem, and then collectively with our partner ecosystem, how do we go and solve that? We offer a no win, no fee. We only get paid once deals are signed, as a way in which we can help organizations release that sort of capital burden, but ultimately through our exercise of working with clients, release capital of which they can then invest in other areas of the business and ideally grow as a result. So, and that's how we've been able to attract customers in such a short time frame.
Well, I think it's time to smash these donuts. But thank you very much for tuning in to a Cuppa with Canopy, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.